When you hear the term early retirement or financial independence, what immediately pops into your head? For most of us, it's a very specific, almost cinematic image, right? We usually picture this lifestyle as something reserved strictly for the ultra-wealthy, living completely detached from the daily grind the rest of us face. But today, we're going to look at a completely different, much quieter path.
Okay, let's dive right into this. The FIRE stereotype, financial independence, retire early, basically tells us that you need to be a Silicon Valley software engineer making $300,000 a year, a crypto millionaire, or some high-flying Wall Street pro. It feels totally out of reach for normal people. But the actual reality? Often it's just an incredibly relatable, ordinary middle-class couple in their 30s.
I mean, think about their everyday reality. 2 normal jobs, 2 kids in daycare, a standard 30-year mortgage, car payments, lingering student loans, the whole shebang. Absolutely nothing about this couple's life looks extreme. And yet, despite carrying the exact same heavy financial obligations as the rest of us, they quietly achieved financial independence years earlier than anyone thought possible. Now, just a quick heads up before we really get into the weeds on how they actually pulled this off. This explainer is meant to educate and hopefully inspire you to look at your own finances differently, but it isn't formal financial advice.
So what's really fascinating about their approach is that they didn't rely on sheer misery to build their wealth. You know the frugality myth, the idea that you have to live in some off-grid tiny cabin and completely stop enjoying life. But their real strategy was just focusing on the gap between their income and their lifestyle. They didn't suffer. They simply and aggressively avoided lifestyle inflation whenever their income grew.
Which brings us to a deeply relatable question that I want you to really think about for a second. Why do good salaries so often feel incredibly stressful? You get a raise, you're making more money than you did 5 years ago, but somehow you still feel like you're barely keeping your head above water financially. Well, it's an invisible trap that catches almost everyone. Here's how it works. First, you earn a higher income. Naturally, your surrounding lifestyle upgrades to match it. You buy nicer clothes, you eat out a bit more, maybe lease a nicer car. Predictably, those higher expenses swallow the new income whole, slowly trapping hardworking families in a cycle of constant low-level financial stress.
But let's look at how this couple reacted completely differently than their peers. As incomes rose, their friends bought bigger homes and upgraded to luxury SUVs every few years. But this couple? They made the quiet, conscious decision to just stay put. They drove the reliable older cars a lot longer. They actively chose to step off that treadmill of keeping up with the Joneses. And to be clear, they weren't suffering by driving those older cars or staying in their starter home. Instead of chasing flashy appearances, they were actively, automatically funneling every single dollar of that difference into their investments, like index funds and 401ks, year after year.
But I want to be completely 100% honest about this part of the journey. At first, the progress feels painfully slow. You invest the money, you check your accounts on your phone, and your portfolio barely moves. It is an agonizing phase that makes you seriously question if all this quiet sacrifice is actually worth it.
And the emotional burden of this phase, it literally cannot be overstated. From the outside, their friends looked substantially wealthier, glossy upgrades, better vacations, bigger houses. Meanwhile, the reality for our couple was that they looked completely ordinary. Looking poorer than your friends creates this massive, constant psychological pressure to just give in and spend.
This is the unspoken reality of financial independence. We can define this psychological challenge as the long, quiet period of feeling financially behind your peers before compounding actually takes over. For long stretches, you just feel like you are losing the race. Until, one day, you aren't.
Watch how this builds over a standard 12-year timeline. In year 1, you're just starting out, right? By year 6, you're deeply questioning your progress because the math hasn't exploded yet. But fast forward to year 12, without any risky market timing, their patient, unglamorous investing quietly compounded into something massive.
And then they hit it, the tipping point, the exact mathematical moment the magic happens. The returns on their investments finally started growing faster than their actual living expenses.
Hitting that point triggers a profound emotional shift. Suddenly, work completely stops feeling mandatory. The daily underlying stress of paying the bills massively reduces. Life decisions that used to be dictated by a paycheck suddenly become entirely optional. You gain true, deep breathing room.
This is exactly why we desperately need to reframe financial independence. It is not the myth of luxury or yachts or never working again just to sip drinks on a beach. The real meaning, the true value of wealth is simply freedom, the absolute freedom of choice.
When we distill their journey, we get what we can call the quiet fire formula. It really just comes down to consistent investing, highly controlled lifestyle inflation, and long periods of patience. Most successful wealth-building journeys are actually much quieter and far more accessible than the extreme examples we see flooding our social media feeds.
So, the crucial point here is this powerful grounding realization. You don't need an extraordinary life to achieve financial independence. You need ordinary decisions repeated consistently for a very long time. Just ordinary, daily decisions that ultimately lead to extraordinary, life-changing outcomes.
Which leaves us with a final thought to reflect on today. Are you ready to stop chasing appearances and start building your own quiet freedom? The path isn't flashy, and it certainly isn't fast, but it is very real, and it's entirely within the reach of a normal, middle-class life. Take a look at your own lifestyle choices today and consider what your gap looks like.